I love my job, but my job does not include being punched, kicked, spit at, or slapped, let alone the verbal abuse that we take on a daily basis and don't consider. This bill should make people aware, and there are still people out there who think that, yes, it is okay to assault the nurse, that she deserves it if they have to wait a long time, that this is not okay, and that there will be strict penalties.
Aggressive behavior against nurses is a huge cost emotionally and physically to the staff. We're there to take care of patients and not to be victims ourselves.
This violence is often perpetrated by patients, families, friends, visitors, even other employees of the hospitals. In a 2008 study, we found nearly 80% of surveyed nurse leaders have experienced some form of violence within the work setting. 53% are subject to violence, most commonly from patients, 47% by visitors and other health care providers. Nurses that work in the emergency room setting often are the victims of the greatest source of violence. I strongly support House Bill 1696, Senate Bill 1753.
Nurses should not be punching bags. I can speak from experience, having a mother who was a nurse for 35 years. To be spit at, punched, kicked, and treated with that kind of disrespect and trying to provide care is just not something we should tolerate.
And a patient came in who was a mental health patient. I knew that. I tried to, talk to him. I tried to get his vital signs. He wouldn't let me do that. So I talked to him a little bit about his medications and why he was there. I could tell by his posturing, he wouldn't sit down. It scared me. It alerted me that I needed to get him out of the room quite a way. So I tried to end the interview, and with that, he looked at the computer, and he said something to it. He punched it, tried to pick it up, and then turned to me and assaulted me. He punched me repeatedly over the head, pushed me over off the chair, and just repeatedly punched me. Anyway, I ended up with bruises all over my head and a laceration on my chin, and then just bewildered at what had happened. But actually, he was dismissed because he was deemed mentally incompetent.
3 years ago, I was assaulted by a patient. She came at me and grabbed my hair and pulled me under the desk and started kicking me. And my reaction was just to hold my head. I couldn't believe she was so strong. That's how fast someone can turn violent on you. For no reason, I was just in the way. And so the message needs to be clear. Violence against healthcare workers that are trying to do good is not okay.
In March of 2003, I was brutally, viciously beaten by a patient. It took 16 months to indict him. He was prosecuted to the full extent of the law, but it was felony assault. The hospital that I worked for, Beverly Hospital, strongly encouraged me to not pursue charges because the patient was a customer.
Over 2 years ago, I was physically assaulted while at work in the emergency room by a patient who, again, physically assaulted me by punching me. I was exposed to his blood, not knowing at the time whether he was HIV positive or had any disease such as hepatitis. I go to work, I give 150% to all my patients, and I did get nothing in return. I've received absolutely no support from hospital administration. Under no circumstances does a patient ever have the right to put a hand on a nurse.
Currently, I work at Mass General Emergency Room. I have been a nurse for 17 years. I am also a Boston firefighter, and I have been a firefighter for 20 years. When I am doing my job as a Boston firefighter, I'm protected against anyone trying to assault me. But when I go into the emergency room to like these other two women, do our job, none of that protection comes with me.
The nurses who have come before you today, they're actually speaking from the heart, and they're talking about patients, not patients with dementia, not patients who, are slightly irritable. Many of the nurses that have come here today, they are talking to you about purposeful assaults on them in their workplace setting.